Hello guys and welcome to the 5.14 tier list update. My name's Alpha Jackal, and just a quick thing before we get started. I know this has come a bit later than usual. For those of you tuning in for the first time, tier list updates are usually done on Thursdays, but if you've been looking at my Twitter, you'll know why. If you haven't, well, I was recording something for IRL TV, a show that's being brought back by Jinx TV. The episode starring me is going to be put out sometime in September, from what I hear. That's all I can say. Hope you guys really do enjoy it, but that's why it wasn't done on Thursday. That took all day to record. Friday, I was at work and then had the patch notes to watch. Saturday, again, was at work, so this was the first day which we had to really free time to be able to do it. So that's why we're doing it now. Patch notes still on that Friday. Tier list update's still going to be done on the Thursday. If it needs to be delayed, I'm going to announce it on Twitter. Won't put it in a video because, well, I don't know how long it's going to be delayed by, or if it is even going to be delayed up until that moment. And as per usual, this tier list is going to be done in the guise of European SPL meta mainly, although we will be taking stuff across the board from SMITE Global Series, from SMITE Pro League play in America, and from SMITE Minor League. So, without further ado, let's get started. First up is going to be S+. For those wondering, yes, Freya is still SS. Completely broken in a competitive environment. So, S+ is going to be the first point where we see two gods actually going to be moved down, and both of them are going to be moving down to S-. First one is Aphrodite. No surprise to be seeing her moved with the changes to Lono's mask. Lono's mask will now reduce the healing received by the wearer, and this hits Aphrodite the hardest. Think of gods like Hel, you think of gods like Chang'e or Ra. Their healing affects 5 people. With Aphrodite, it affects her, and it affects one other target. So if you're reducing the healing by 20% on one person when you're healing 5 people, not as noticeable. If you reduce the healing received by one person by 20% when healing 2 people, a lot more noticeable. Aphrodite got hit hardest by this change, and that shows. Next up, moving down again to S- as I stated just earlier, is Zhonghui. Similar reasoning is the fact that his healing when he has Lono's mask is a bit lowered, so he's a tiny bit easier to kill. But there are a couple of other reasons. Blue buff changes in 5.13 and the nerfs he has received in 5.13 were a big contributing factor to him moving down. He's a bit less tanky, a bit easier to kill, and his mana sustain in lane is a bit less pressure oriented. He has to really focus on trying to clear the wave as well as hitting you with that same ability if he wants to sustain his mana resourcefully. Otherwise, he really will run out of mana fast, and that's when you can very easily gank him, because he doesn't have the availability to stun and ult. He'll have to choose either one or the other, at which point you can chase him down and kill him a bit easier. Next up is going to be the S category. One character is going to be moving up, and that's going to be Ne Zha. Ne Zha's passive, absolutely broken. We all knew this coming into this patch, where they changed in 5.13, where they changed all the passives. I didn't predict how good. I predicted Ne Zha would do well. I didn't predict he would be doing this well. He is absolutely insane right now, completely controlling the jungle with his increased movement speed from ring toss and his passive. Meaning he just zooms around the map. With just ring toss, you could probably hit about 500 movement speed very easily. That's like tier 1 boots and max ring toss. You are very, very fast with Ne Zha in the current meta, so you're able to farm the jungle very quickly. Your increased power allows you to clear that jungle incredibly quickly, and even if you're not playing him in the jungle, you're playing him in solo lane, it's very difficult to dislodge him, because his increased power allows him to clear minions a lot quicker than you will do. His increased movement speed allows him to move around and rotate around your basic attacks and abilities a bit more easily, and he has a big ass heal on his flaming spear, which he then has crit and then kills you because his crits hit harder than they did in the previous patch, because he has increased power off from his passive rather than increased critical strike chance. Ne Zha right now is a terror, and he is rightfully being nerfed in the next patch. Probably going to speed move straight back down, but for now, S plus is where he should have been at 513, is now where he is at 514. Two gods are going to be moving down, and that's going to be Chang'e, going to be moving all the way down to A plus tier. Chang'e was primarily picked as a counter to Zhonghui, and with Zhonghui no longer being in the picture, her stock does fall a bit. Her stock falls a bit further because of the changes to blue buff. Her mana sustain is a bit less there, to really put it into simple words. So her poke ability and her bully ability just isn't as prevalent as it was before. She falls down a tiny bit further, so A plus is where she will be. She's still a great pick, but she's no longer the instant win condition that she was back in the Summer LAN. And she did get a tiny bit nerfed in 513 or 514. It probably was 513. Also moving out of S, but not as big, is going to be Hell. For now, going to be moving down to S-. I anticipate even further reduction in Hell play. But out of all the gods that got hit by the Lono's changes, I think Hell suffers the least. Because she brings a lot of healing still, whilst also bringing good control with her cleanse, bringing good control with her slow and damage increase because of the hinder. And she didn't really need Lono's before. It was just a big bonus to her play. Aphrodite didn't really need Lono's before as well, but it was a massive boost to her. With Hell, I still feel like she can be played, she can still be strong, just doesn't go Lono's anymore, still builds tanky, and can still do what she needs to do in terms of healing. Do I anticipate that we see Hell at all? No, because blue buff is trash tier right now, especially on a god that demands a lot of mana like Hell. So I'm just putting her down this part for now. If we don't see her at all in any form of competitive environment, she's going to be moving down again, just slightly decreasing her play based on changes to Lono's Mask only. Next up, S- tier. Why the hell did my Alexa just go off? Anyway, S- tier. Odin is going to be moving down to A. As healers go out of the meta, he goes out of the meta a bit. His stock falls, and he doesn't really clear jungle that well. His solo lane presence just isn't really there as well. He gets bullied out by pretty much everybody, considering he has to sacrifice his escape and his shield to clear the wave in the early game. He'll clear it very fast, but then he's just a sitting duck, because he then just gets killed by the enemy solo laner or any gank from any competent jungler. There's an Odin in the solo lane, and you're not ganking that lane because he's jumping in every single time. You're not doing your job right. And if you are able to jump in on the lane as Odin, you're really risking it, because the second you get ganked once or twice because you jumped on the wave and you die a couple of times, you're then behind and then forced to sit on the tower anyway. You might as well do that whilst even rather than from behind. Also, to the S- tier, Baron is going to be added. We talked about this last week, but Baron brings a hell of a lot of control, some good damage, some good sustain, as well as good utility to his team. He brings it all. The only reason he's not been placed higher is because we haven't really seen any competitive play with him in it. Just the one match so far in the United Invitational during the high-res versus the skill shot versus pros matchup. And it was like sort of a joke matchup anyway. He has fantastic heal, don't get me wrong. I kind of anticipate that we will see him move up in the tier list as well. But for now, S- seems like a solid place to put him based on the fact that we haven't seen any competitive games with him yet. Moving on down to A+. And this is not the surprising one, but still a tiny bit of a shocker. Ganesh going to be moving down to A. Big reason is Sprint totally fucks his ability to play the game. If there's a Ganesh on the enemy team, and you as a backline diver are not buying Sprint, you are doing something wrong. He has very single target initiation and peel focused abilities. His early game passive isn't really that useful when every Guardian wants to avoid last hits now. Yes, he'll get his Guardian's Blessing stacked up first every single time unless you kill him in the early game, but everyone's getting that benefit now. Ganesh just doesn't really have a place in this meta right now because he doesn't really have great initiation. He's a very counter-initiation focused support. And you want the ability to engage with your support. You can do with Ganesh, But that involves sacrificing your ult and your dash, and maybe even your silence, to initiate on a single target. Whilst if I'm Gerbil Sylvanas, blink ult, bang, I got 2 or 3 people initiated on immediately. I don't feel like Ganesh is that great in this meta right now, simply because sprint is as prevalent as it is. Isis is also going to be moving down to A. Lono's mask change, yet again, is at the forefront of this reasoning. Simply because, with Lono's before, you would burst heal everybody back up to pretty much full HP regardless. Now, you don't burst heal yourself back up. You're still almost impossible to kill in that circle protection with Lono's. But the second that gets popped, you are receiving 20% less healing. So you're still a bit easier to kill, meaning you'd have to play your fights a bit safer. Though you can't play them as aggressively, which is what you want to do as Isis, so her position ability becomes a bit weaker. Therefore, she becomes a bit weaker. Therefore, she moves down the tier list. Just a slight bit, though. A. 2 gods going to be moving up out of A. First one is Vulcan. Changes recently to Vulcan, whereas Backfire can now go through walls, and his turret now gains penetration on gods, pretty much. The turret ignores 25% of protections, so it kind of is like penetration. Which just removes a bit of clunkiness from his kit and a bit of frustration that people had with his kit. A lot of mage abilities were able to go through walls, and if somebody puts down a Thor wall or your Ymir wall, and you backfire, you don't kill the people who are behind it. It was a bit frustrating. Sitting with the turret, the tanks just weren't feeling the turret at all, nor was anybody in that late game scenario. You bought a lot of penetration on your build, and the turret was just like, I don't care. Just firing for 300 damage every single shot, no matter what the fuck you build. Apart from power, it will also go off your power, but... Now that it has a bit of penetration on it, squishies and tanks alike will have to be a bit more fearful and play a bit better around it, and that backfire going through walls, whilst a tiny bit less significant, can still be significant in a few select scenarios, as we talked about with Thor, with Ymir, maybe even with Kabrakan. Those walls can be quite annoying to the Vulcan player. Now, this is the change which a lot of you might not have expected. Although if you have seen the patch notes, you probably did see this one coming, just might not have been as big as you would have thought. The Morrigan is going to be moving. The Morrigan's going to be moving to S-. Why that big of a jump? Well, there's a couple reasons for this. I believe in the patch notes, there are 2 sections of it, one for bug fixes and one for buffs. In the buffs, her Dark Omen gains increased damage against minions. Her wave clear is a bit stronger, therefore, and then, therefore, she is a bit more strong in lane, because she can clear the wave a bit quicker, and then poke you out a bit faster. But that's not the big reason for this change. The big reason for this change is, it wasn't really a bug fix, it was more of a quality of life change. The quality of life change that she received is that she now gains the stacks of items that her opponents have built when she transforms into them. Might not seem like a big deal, but if an enemy god has, this is an extreme example, if an enemy god has Warlock stack and Book of Thoth, before you weren't gaining those stacks. You were just gaining an unstacked Warlock staff, unstacked Book of Thoth, so you weren't gaining a lot of power from them, or health. So you were essentially transforming into half the character that you were transforming into, which wasn't the entire aim of the Morrigan. You were meant to become a carbon copy of the character you're transforming into. Now, if their Warlock staff has 75 stacks, you are gaining those 75 stacks when transforming into them, meaning you are a bit tankier, you have a bit more damage available to you. If their Book of Thoth is complete, you are gaining a fuck ton of damage from what it was before. Because of the changes to Book of Thoth, and because you have all 75 stacks. Like, this change cannot be understated to how much more powerful the Morrigan will be when transforming into enemy gods. The Dark Omen buff, that was fine. But if I'm transforming into a Zeus with a fully stacked Book of Thoth, I'm going to be swinging a hell of a lot harder now in this patch than I was in the previous one. Meaning, there is no real counter building to Morrigan anymore. The big counter build and one of the big reasons why she wasn't really picked is because Warlock Staff and Book of Thoth were in the meta. And yes, she could build them herself, but when she transformed, she didn't gain those benefits. So transforming was a big risk for her, because she became weaker in the transformation. When ideally you want your transformation to make you stronger, just for that 10 second brief window. I anticipate we're going to be seeing a lot more Morrigan than we have done. S- might be a bit of a stretch, but I still think she is fantastic right now, and we should be seeing a lot more of her than we really do. One more god is going to be moved, and that will do us for the tier list update. It's not in that A category. A category is done with. It's not in the A- category. It's not Loki. Loki is still a C tier, trash tier character. Don't ever pick Loki. It's actually going to be Skadi. Skadi did get changed. Her Calder now regenerates a health point every 7 seconds rather than every 10 seconds. So now has better access to Calder, and that's a big buff to her. Considering Calder was one of the main focuses and main sources of frustration when playing against her when she was super strong. So Calder is available more often, which means she can aggress and combo you more often, meaning she can play aggressive a bit more freely. As well as the fact that her main wave clear and poke ability has gone from 15 seconds to 14 seconds cooldown. Still a lot longer cooldown than pretty much every other wave clear ability from a hunter, but it's up a tiny bit more often, which means that she can combo you down a tiny bit quicker, along with the changes to Calder. Overall, Skadi is going to move up to A-, just a small bump up. Puts her a bit ahead of Kronos, a bit ahead of Cupid, a bit ahead of Chiron, but I still anticipate we won't see her. Simply because there are just so many decent hunters available above her. And that is going to be it for the tier list update this week. A bit of a short one, but it was a lot shorter than I thought it was going to be. Simply because I thought Lono was going to completely wreck the tier list. That reduction of healing received. But if you think about it, it doesn't really affect too many gods, because only the healers were abusing it. And they have rightfully been moved down. Maybe Hell needs to move down a bit more, but we'll see how she pans out in this patch, and maybe even the next one before we start looking at healers again. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, each tier list update is going to go live on the Thursdays, unless I say so on Twitter. If you don't follow me on Twitter already, links will be in the description, so go ahead and look at those to follow me for updates about the stream, updates about SPL, updates about pretty much everything else. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.